in the ravine. The tolls have been reduced, and what's left is a shorter ecosystem for all the life living in there. Frogs, crickets, butterflies, bees, flies, whatever. Everything gets in there. Mosquitoes, whatever was in there. Anyway, I wanted to mention Bitcoin runes, rune tokens specifically, right? What are Bitcoin rune tokens? How are they of any interest to anybody? Well, if you're familiar with the NFT space and the crypto space and the Web3 space and all that space, maybe you've heard of Bitcoin ordinals. And if you're familiar with Bitcoin ordinals, you basically know they're kind of like similar to NFTs from the Ethereum blockchain. Ordinals are basically that on the Bitcoin blockchain. Now, they are different. They're different protocols. There are different things they can and can't do. And there's different ways to acquire them, to hold them, to sell them. But they're similar enough. For the purpose of this discussion, they're similar enough. They, for the most part, ordinals tend to be images and other media on the Bitcoin blockchain that are essentially either artwork or tokenized items, and they're non-fungible, okay? Effectively. They're inscriptions upon Satoshis, and they're not fungible, meaning if you have an inscription on your Satoshi, whatever the ordinal is, maybe it's a picture of a cat or whatever, or a whale, like a Nakamoto ordinal, then that inscription will not exist on another Satoshi. It only exists on that Satoshi. And if somebody wants that ordinal, they have to buy it from whoever the owner is, or otherwise acquire it somehow, right? It can be gifted to them, whatever. They could win it in a contest, anything. They could earn it through work, whatever it is. It's similar to an NFT. No two are identical, even if the images look similar or even identical, or even if the media on it is similar or identical. The inscription has its unique place on the blockchain, has its unique place on a particular Bitcoin and on a particular Satoshi. Right? It was mined, that Satoshi was mined at a particular time on a particular block. The more rare that Satoshi is, the more it has some kind of perceived value. If it's a very early Bitcoin block, one of the first million or whatever, that's considered, to some people rare, to some people not, whatever. If it's one of the very earlier ones, like one of the ones that Hal Finney mined, that has a perceived value. If it's one of the ones that Satoshi mined, that has, for some people, or maybe for most people, an even higher value. And so on. Now, along comes a developer who sees the ordinal space and sees that these tokens are non-fungible. And he thinks what if there was a way to make fungible tokens, much like the US dollar is fungible, right? You can exchange $100 for 100 single dollars or 520s or whatever. It's effectively you still have $100. Technically, if you have bills, yes, there's serial numbers on the bills, but if you have coins other than the year that's printed on the coin, there's no differentiator, right? A quarter is a quarter. And even a dollar bill is a dollar bill, because nobody really cares about the serial number. So the Bitcoin Runes protocol basically is similar to that concept. These runes, really the Runes protocol allows you to make tokens and those tokens are fungible, meaning you can swap them for other similar tokens. And they will have the same value. So in a way, it's kind of like, even though that's not how it's really been presented, but you can think of it this way, it's like, not really a fiat currency, but it's kind of a currency within the currency, or within the cryptographic currency that is Bitcoin. Some people will tell you that Bitcoin is property. Sure, in the United States, it's considered property, but in many jurisdictions around the world, it's in fact considered a currency. Now, why is that of importance? Well, first of all, because it's still relatively new, right? It's a protocol that was launched this year, 2024. And there are all kinds of interesting parameters and things built into the game theory. For example, the length of the names of a token, and you don't get to choose necessarily your token name. And over time, the length of names that are available will be shorter names. So they start out with long names, and eventually, after a certain number of Bitcoin halvings, they'll be all the way down to the one character names, of which there will only be 26, because they will only be from A to Z. It will not include 0 to 9 or special characters. And no two tokens can have the same identical name. So, if you happen to have created a Runes protocol token, and your tokens are called, I really like oak trees or whatever, there can only be one set with that name. There can't be a second I really love oak trees token. And the idea of that is obviously limited supply and limited availability to begin with, even before supply is established. There's a lot of interesting things about that. The creator of it looked at BRC20 and attempted to take the good features of BRC20 and leave out the not so great features, maybe. or features some would say are not so great. I did post about this on my X channel. I also reposted a video where the creator, dressed as a Viking, explains the runes protocol in depth, and I posted a thread about where he explains all the, in layman's terms mostly, the technical aspects of it, and it's worth a watch. Now, about Bitcoin itself, switching to trading for a second. Bitcoin, on the 4-hour time frame, you may have noticed, if you use the alpha trading indicators, has very recently, in the last several candles or so, hit F3 STDEV band to the downside on the 3012 RMLR. Now, if you remember last week, it reverted to the 3012 RMLR after having hit a 3 STDEV band to the upside about a week ago. It took 4 or 5 days for that mean reversion to happen, and lo and behold, it happened, because that's what happens. So look for a mean reversion, since it has not hit now that band again in the last few candles, and the RMLR in question, the 3012, has dropped down to around 67k, and it's going to be bouncing around there and possibly a bit lower over the coming candles. So that doesn't mean it has to go down, but that's certainly a possibility. Anyway, wanted to point that out. Happy trading.